Drake just dropped more bars for Iceman. And bro is out here claiming he could sell out the Superdome by himself, playing only new music. Yeah, the same Superdome where Kendrick just bodied the Super Bowl halftime show in front of the entire world. The same show where Cop performed Not Like Us and had the planet doing Seawalk. But it gets worse. Drake's over here saying people only get streams because they mention him, completely ignoring that Kendrick destroyed him so bad he filed a lawsuit against his own label. And Drake really thought this was a moment to double down. Before we get into it, subscribe, don't miss it. Now, Aubrey Drake Grant, the sixth guy himself, leaked another snippet from his long-awaited Iceman project called Size Me Up, also known as Spicy Hot by fans. The track dropped during Super Bowl weekend in February 2026, posted across social media and his mysterious plot twist music account. Drake's been teasing Iceman since July 2025. That's 7 months of rollout with no album. Bro really thought drip-feeding snippets while Kendrick music takes victory laps with strategic timing. Now, let's break down why these bars prove Drake's in full meltdown mode. Look, let me walk you through the exact receipts that show Drake spiraling. On the Size Me Up snippet leaked in February 2026, Drake raps, "You boys gotta stand on a chair when you size me up and music. I'll sell the Superdome out by myself. Only playing the underscore I just dropped." When I heard that Superdome line, I was like, what, bro? Kendrick literally just performed at Caesars Superdome for the Super Bowl 2025 halftime show. That's the biggest stage in music. Drake's out here acting like he could do better when Kendrick had Serena Williams walk in the crowd while the world watched him perform Not Like Us 5 times at the Pop-Out concert, then again at the Grammys where it won Song and Record of the Year, and then at the Super Bowl. That's not confidence, that's denial. Then there's another snippet where Drake says, "Niggas got lit off the features I skated on." This man is literally claiming other artists only got hot because he gave them features. Nah, Drake. People got lit off Not Like Us because Kendrick exposed you so thoroughly. Music. You sued Universal Music Group, your own label, trying to stop the song. When I read about that lawsuit, I had to do a double take. You're suing the label that pays you because Kendrick cooked you that bad. In Drake's July 2025 track, "What Did I Miss" from the Iceman Episode 1 live stream, he said, "Last time I looked to my right, you _ was standing beside me. How can some people I love hang around who tried me? And I saw a bro at the pop-out with them, but been gang since headlines." That right there is where Drake started gaslighting. He's mad people showed up to Kendrick's junk concert. Bro, that's called the culture picking a side, and they pick cot. You can't call LeBron James and DeMar D Rosen fake just because they celebrated a generational moment in hip-hop. That's the dumbest flex I've ever heard. Then we got Doghouse from Iceman Episode 3 in September 2025 featuring Yeet. Yeet raps _ a money tree. I'm a cash cow. If I ain't give a _ then I don't give a _ now. That's a direct shot at Kendrick's classic money trees from Good Kid, Mad City. When I heard Drake let someone else diss Kendrick on his track, I knew he was scared to go heating again. You're hiding behind Yeet now? That's where he lost the plot. On another leaked snippet, Drake admitted, "I _ up last summer." Social media immediately connected this to the Kendrick beef that went nuclear in May 2024. But here's the thing. Drake won't say Kendrick's music name. He won't address Not Like Us. He won't acknowledge that Family Matters flopped harder than any Drake single in history. Nah, you can't admit you _ up and then spend 7 months dropping snippets acting like you won. That's gaslighting, bro. Now that we got the quotes, music, let's connect the dots on the timeline nobody's talking about. That Superdome line dropped during Super Bowl weekend, literally 3 days after Kendrick's halftime performance became the most watched hip-hop moment of 2025. Drake really thought people wouldn't notice the timing. That's terrible timing, bro. Here's what y'all didn't notice, though. Drake announced Iceman back in July 2025 during his first live stream episode. That means by February Music 2026, he'd been teasing this project for 7 months without dropping the full album. Meanwhile, Baby Keem just announced his album Casino, dropping February 20th, 2026. And Keem signed to PG Lang with Kendrick. The internet saying Drake's been delaying Iceman specifically to drop the same week as Baby Keem and compete with Kendrick's camp. If that's true, Drake's not being strategic. He's being petty. Any smart person would have waited for the beef to cool down. But Drake isn't smart. Remember that What Did I Miss track? That interview happened right after Kendrick won Best Rap Song at the Grammys in February 2025 for Not Like Us. Drake was touring Toronto in a literal ice delivery van for a company called the Iceman Toronto, which is a real business that exists for years. He's co-opting a local ice delivery service's branding for his album rollout. That tells you he's scrambling for a narrative. The Iceman concept isn't even original. That's when you know he doesn't have real advisors around him. And here's the biggest piece of hidden context. DJ Academics has been previewing Drake's snippets on his live streams for months, testing fan reactions before Drake officially drops anything. That's not confidence. That's market research. Drake's been dropping snippets, reading the comments, then deciding what actually makes the album. That post dropped 48 hours after critics drag him for suing UMG. The lawsuit alleges UMG artificially inflated the success of Not Like Us with bots and Payola. But Drake signed to Republic Records, which is owned by UMG. Bro is literally suing his own bosses because he can't accept he lost. We all saw this coming when Drake went silent after Not Like Us dropped in May 2024. He responded with The Heart Part 6, which Kendrick Music didn't even make. Drake stole the naming convention out of desperation, claimed he fed Kendrick fake information about a secret daughter, then went quiet for 2 months. Now he's back acting like the last year didn't happen. That's not a comeback. That's rewriting history. Now check this out. Nobody's talking about the forensic music details buried in these bars. Let's zoom into that line. Stand on a chair when you sizing me up. This is Drake attempting word play around height and stature. But here's what makes it a hidden cell phone. Kendrick's been called short his whole career, and he's turned it into a power move. I'm 5 feet 5 inches, but my bank account's 6 foot type energy. Drake using physical height as a disc in 2026. That's the same played out angle Twitter trolls use. If Drake had half a brain, he would have noticed this makes him sound insecure about needing physical advantages when Kendrick's been beating him with bars. And Drake really didn't catch that. That's embarrassing. Now, let's dissect I'll Sell the Superdome Out by Myself. On the surface, Drake's flexing his stadium power, but dig deeper. Why the Superdome specifically? Why not Rogers Center in Toronto, his home turf? Why not Madison Square Garden? Because the Superdome is where Kendrick just made history. Drake's not bragging about his own capacity. He's trying to diminish Kendrick's Super Bowl moment by claiming he could replicate it. That's the problem with Drake. He doesn't create his own lane anymore. He reacts to Kendrick's wins by claiming he could do it better instead of just doing it. That line isn't a flex. It's a confession that he's still in Kendrick's shadow. Here's where it gets even more interesting. Underscore got lit off the features I skated on. Notice Drake says skated on, not elevated, not collaborated with, but skated. That implies he didn't invest energy, just showed up and left. But if you skated on features and people still got lit from them, doesn't that mean they had the better verse? Drake's accidentally admitting he got outshined on his own features? Think about it. He's bitter that artists gain momentum from working with him, but instead music of taking credit for discovering talent. He's mad they succeeded. That's not a winning mentality. Music, that's insecurity disguised as arrogance. And Drake really thought that line was a compliment to himself. Nah, bro. That was a disc disguised as a flex. Let's analyze the vocal delivery on Sizing Me Up. Drake uses his half-whisper flow, the same lazy delivery fans have been criticizing since honestly Nevermind. He's not spitting with a hunger of back-to-back or the precision of duppy freestyle. This is Phone and Drake going through the motions. You can hear in his tone music that he's not confident in these bars. Compare that to Kendrick's delivery on Not Like Us. Aggressive, playful, confident. Music. Kendrick wasn't questioning if the bars would land. He knew they would. Drake sounds like he's hoping these lines stick. Now, the F.A. Money Tree line from Yeet on Doghouse. This is strategic. Drake lets someone else take the direct shot at Kendrick's discography. So if it backfires, Yeet takes the blame. But here's the forensic detail. Money Trees came out in 2012, over 13 years ago. Drake's reaching back to a classic track instead of addressing Kendrick's recent work. Why? Because he can't address Not Like Us, Euphoria, or 616 in LA without reminding everyone he got demolished. So he hides behind Yeet dissing a song from over a decade ago. That's not strategy. That's cowardice. Here's another pattern nobody caught. Drake keeps saying I don't give A __ across multiple snippets. If I ain't give A __ then I don't give A __ now. When someone repeats they don't care that many times, they care. If you really were unbothered, you wouldn't music. Spend 7 months dropping subliminals. You'd move on. Kendrick dropped Not Like Us, won multiple Grammys, headlined the Super Bowl, and went silent on Drake. That's real I don't give A __ energy. Drake's out here performing apathy, while his actions scream obsession. Now, let's see how the media covered this. Rolling Stone reported Drake's What Did I Miss music as him addressing fake friends and broken loyalties, framing it as Drake being the victim of betrayal. Remember those bars from earlier about people standing beside him? Rolling Stone spun it as Drake taking the high road. But Hot New Hip Hop had a music different take. They called the sizing me up snippet proof that fans are ready for Drake to deliver Iceman, focusing on the hype rather than the content. Remember that Superdome line? They didn't question the timing or the desperation. They just fed into Drake's narrative that anticipation is building. Capital Extra, A went even harder, breaking music, down Doghouse, and highlighting the F.A. Money Tree line as Drake taking a dig at Kendrick. They framed it like Drake was on offense, but we already dissected how that's actually Drake hiding behind Yeet. The media is giving Drake credit for shots he didn't even take himself. Now, some people are saying Drake's rollout is genius marketing because he's keeping his name in headlines without music dropping the album. But those are the same people who thought For All the Dogs was going to be album of the music year, and that project got mixed reviews at best. The Grammys didn't even nominate it for Best Rap Album. Meanwhile, Kendrick swept with Not Like Us. Here's why that counterargument doesn't hold up. Drake's not generating hype through quality. He's generating hype through quantity. 7 months of snippets, 3 live stream episodes, leaked tracks on burner accounts. That's not strategy. That's stalling. If the music was strong enough to stand alone, he'd drop the album and let it speak. Instead, he's testing the market with leaks to see what sticks before committing. Some Drake defenders are reaching. Try and claim the Superdome line isn't about Kendrick, that it's just general bragging. If you still think Drake's bars aren't aimed at Kendrick after all this evidence, you're just biased. Music, the timeline, the context, the specific venue reference, it's all pointing to one person. The media trying to spin this as Drake being unbothered is doing him a disservice because the receipts prove otherwise. But here's what nobody's saying. This isn't about beef anymore. This is about Drake's inability to accept that the culture moved on without him. The mainstream narrative is that Drake and Kendrick are rivals trading music shots. Here's the real story. Kendrick ended the beef in May 2024, and Drake's been fighting a ghost for the past year and a half. Think about the historical pattern here. We've seen this before. Remember when Jay-Z bodied Nas on Takeover, and Nas came back with Ether? That was a back and forth where both sides landed punches, music, or 50 Cent versus Ja Rule. 50 didn't just win with bars. He systematically dismantled Jaw's career through strategy and relentless pressure until Jaw couldn't music recover. Drake's situation is different. Kendrick dropped Euphoria, 616 in LA, Meet the Grams, and Not Like Us in music at 2 E-span. Each track escalated from warning shots to character assassination to a global music hit that's still getting radio play in 2026. Drake responded with Family Matters, which got buried within hours, music, by Meet the Grams and The Heart Part 6, where he admitted to feeding Kendrick fake info, which makes him look like a manipulator whether the daughter music story is true or not. Here's the real reason Drake can't let this go. His entire identity is built on being the biggest rapper alive. Not the best, the biggest. Drake's always focused on streams, chart positions, and commercial dominance. Kendrick shattered that illusion by proving you can lose a commercial battle and still win the culture. Not Like Us became bigger than Drake's entire For All the Dogs album cycle. One song, That's what's eating Drake alive. Remember that interview clip where Drake said, I __ up last summer. Here's the deeper meaning. Drake's admitting he miscalculated how seriously the culture would take Kendrick's accusations. Drake thought he could weather the pedophile allegations the same way he weathered the ghostwriting accusations in 2015 by ignoring them and letting his commercial success speak. But this time, the culture demanded accountability. The Super Bowl performance, the Grammy wins, the lawsuit Drake filed, all of it proves Kendrick's accusations stuck in a way Drake's team didn't anticipate. Drake is a puppet of the system he claims to dominate. His label, Universal Music Group, controls his narrative, his release schedule, his public image. When Kendrick threatened that image, Drake didn't defend himself as an artist. He sicked his lawyers on UMG, demanding they suppress Not Like Us. That's not hip-hop. That's corporate desperation. The industry needs Drake to maintain his position because he's a cash cow, but the culture is done with him. Iceman isn't an album rollout. It's a farewell tour disguised as a comeback. Every snippet, every live stream, every delayed release is Drake trying to convince himself he's still got it, but we see through it. And that's the truth they won't tell you. Drake's team won't let him accept defeat because his music, entire economic value depends on the illusion of invincibility. So music, instead of taking the L, learning from it, and coming back stronger like every great rapper music before him, Drake's stuck in this limbo, releasing just enough content to stay relevant, but not enough to be judged. That's not the move of a GOAT. That's the move of someone who's scared. Drake represents the old guard that the culture has done music with. Artists who prioritize stats over substance, who use their wealth and industry connections to avoid accountability. Kendrick music represents the new era. Artists who can't be bought, can't be silenced, and won't compromise their integrity for commercial success. This moment isn't just about a beef. It's about music, hip-hop choosing its future. And Drake's on the losing side of history. Every move Drake makes is predictable now. He's already lost. Music just hasn't accepted it yet. And if he keeps dropping snippets instead of the actual album, we're watching a career crumble in real time. So what happens next? Let me give you 3 scenarios. And spoiler alert, Drake loses in all of them. When this album actually drops, if it drops, the expectations are going to be impossible to meet. Drake's been teasing this for 7 months. Fans are expecting his magnum opus, the project that proves he's still on top. But here's the problem. No album can live up to that hype when you've already leaked half the track list as snippets. If Sizing Me Up, What Did I Miss in Doghouse are the strongest records, then Drake's in trouble. Those tracks are mid at best. Music. And when the album drops and critics give it 610 across the board, Drake's going to look desperate for dragging out the rollout this long. The silence is going to hurt Drake more than any diss track could. Fans are already tired of waiting. When they finally get it, and it's underwhelming, the backlash is going to be brutal. Here's the alternative. Drake keeps dropping episodes, keeps leaking snippets, and music never officially releases the album. That way, he can claim he was just experimenting or having fun if the reception stays lukewarm. This is actually the safest move for him, because he avoids being judged on a complete body of work. But here's why this backfires. Music. Every month that passes without the album, Drake looks more like a cloud chaser than a serious artist. We've seen this playbook before. Remember when Kanye kept delaying DA and it became a meme? Drake's heading down that same path. When Kendrick stays silent and Drake keeps yelling into the void, it becomes obvious who's really unbothered. Drake's music, not ready for what's coming if he tries to drag this out another 6 months. The culture's patience is running out. Now, here's the wild card. Baby Keem's album drops in a week. And if it's even half as good as the music Melodic Blue, it's going to dominate the conversation. And guess who's executive producing? Kendrick's P-Lang. If Keem's album has a Kendrick music feature, and you know it probably does, that's going to reignite the narrative that Kendrick's camp is thriving music, while Drake's scrambling. If Drake drops Iceman the same week trying to compete, he's going to get destroyed in the cultural conversation. People will compare every bar Drake spits music to whatever Kendrick says on Keem's album. And if Kendrick goes silent and still wins a week, That's the ultimate humiliation. Drake's watching the culture move on without him, and there's nothing he can do about it. 5 years from now, people are going to look back at the Iceman rollout as the moment Drake's relevance died. Not because the music was bad, but because he spent more time teasing it than Kendrick spent ending him. This is going to be the case study in how not to respond to losing a beef. Music. Instead of taking the L with grace and rebuilding, Drake's proving every accusation Kendrick made. Mark my words, whether Drake drops the album or not, the damage is done. Not Like Us is going to be played at parties, weddings, and sporting events for the next decade. What's Drake's legacy going to be? The guy who sued his label because he couldn't handle getting out-rapped. That's not legendary. That's pathetic. Whatever happens, one thing's clear. Drake already lost. He's just performing a meltdown for an audience that's already moved on. Thanks for watching Celebsphere. If you enjoyed uncovering the real story, smash that like button and hit subscribe so you never miss when we expose what everyone else is too scared to say. Ring that bell for notifications. And if you want more truth bombs like this, click on one of these videos next.